that's, again, as you phrased it, for the scales sliding one way. I get he had to stop the bleeding. I get there was a horrible run of results. And the first thing was like, let's get back to keeping clean sheets. I don't think anyone disagreed with that. That needed to happen. But now, and we've used this phrase a few times, you're seeing it consistently. You've seen it over a period. It's almost a coin flip, isn't it? It's, we'll try not to concede. And you're brilliant, Ekitike. You're brilliant, Verts. Just go and do something and see if you can nick us a goal. And we'll see how that lands us. And 50-50, like a coin flip, literally. There's positives there, as in you stop the bleeding, but there's not real long-term positives in this is really something to hang your hat on, is there?
No, this is it. You're right. I completely agree. He needed to do what he did in terms of solidifying Liverpool, because it was they were giving up chances left, right, and centre. It was so easy to play through, and he's absolutely achieved that. And he's put Liverpool in a far better position in the league than they were. You have a lot more confidence that they'll get top four than maybe you would have previously, and that's the minimum aim for the rest of the season. But you do probably need to see more, because as much as we're talking about the style and how it looks, one of the things that would make it slightly more exciting, even though it's probably not going to be as slick as you would hope, is if they created more chances. And someone says there that the lack of chances they create is wild. That's what I'm kind of alluding to when I said the stuff under the hood and the underlying stuff is not very good. Liverpool do not create enough. They really have sacrificed a lot of creativity to make themselves more solid. And that is fine in the short term. But in the long term, they have to do more than this. And like I say, the way they go about creating chances, maybe, like I say, City play attacking football in fits and starts. It's not perfect at the moment. But Liverpool need to be closer to them in terms of what they do and have real attacking patterns. And, like I say, I got a bit of stick for saying the Barnsley performance wasn't very good, but I genuinely believed it. Please, I promise everyone, not coming at this with some sort of agenda, or just kind of say how I saw it. And they get to 75 minutes against Barnsley, and I can't emphasize this enough, 0.75 expected goals created. With the quality Liverpool had on the pitch, and I know the front line wasn't perfect, but what they still had enough for me, for those attacking patterns to be there, and for the Barnsley keeper to at least need to produce a worldie, because it wasn't that like kind of ripped up FA Cup side that Klopp used to put out. It was a really decent side, and the reason I was less understanding of it, it's a cup game, they're not going to be as perfect in attack or whatever, is because this has been a pattern recently. This is not. And so I was kind of like, well, if this is the pattern against Premier League sides, maybe you see something a little bit better against the League One side. Maybe those attacking patterns he's working on, they start to come to the fore. And he just didn't. And again, so this is what I'm worried about, is that I just think the chance creation and the lack of slickness in attack is, they're just miles off kind of where they need to be in terms of going forward at the moment. And that's not talking about aesthetics or the boring football. It's like they just don't create enough chances to win football matches regularly. And that's why they end up in the Fulham game, for example, that being on a knife edge and then being able to nick a point late on, because Liverpool aren't creating enough to put the game out of sight, and they don't do that in a lot of games recently. So it's a real, that's a worry for me, because again, if this was happening at the start of the season, I'd say, look, all these new signings, give them a break, for goodness sake. It's going to take time. And so I was very, very kind of understanding at the start of the season, but the longer it goes on and the longer the underlying numbers continue to be roughly kind of Europa League level when you look at them, the longer you're saying, well, this bank of evidence we've got that stretches possibly back to maybe kind of February of last year, it's a lot of evidence. It's a lot of underlying performance to say this is not a blip. This is not because of this mitigating factor. It's not just because of what the league looks like stylistically. All these things, it hasn't looked very good for a long time, really, what's going on under the hood. And I think that more than anything is what, is why that they haven't given him a new contract, and why they're kind of just keeping the powder dry and having a look at this. And it's why it is a debate, as much as some people really don't want it to be, is because what's going on in the underlying terms. It's not just the results, and you can go through dips, you can go through bad results, you can have problems in certain seasons. Klopp did, but everything that was underpinning it under Jurgen tended to look pretty good. And if not, there was a huge thing to blame, like losing all your centre halves or losing several players to injury or whatever the reasons were. It was very, very clear a lot of the time what was going wrong. Whereas in this situation, for the underlying numbers to have been bad for or not bad, but not great or not good enough for nearly a year now, Liverpool's recruitment staff and their hierarchy there are going to have a real think about why that is. And that's what they are thinking about at the moment. And they're thinking about, is it because this is the limit of Slot's coaching? Is this because we just saw a little bit of kind of him using the leftovers of Jurgen up till the second half of last season, and then now this is the reality? These are all the things you've got to consider. But it is that, for me, it's, Liverpool aren't exciting because they don't create enough chances, and they don't create enough chances because of the way they play, and that is a concern, I think.
And even now, because you talked about the start of the season, we give him time because you want to build it in and get patterns working. Is the other end of that what we're seeing now? You said, I think you're right, we've seen it for such a long time. This style of play is almost becoming natural to these players, habitual, isn't it? Like a bit passive, we say the coin flip style. It's not that you can just walk into the changing room and go, right, lads, we're going for it today. It's not going to happen, isn't it? And this next 6 months for him is his biggest challenge, isn't it? Realistic. How does he change that style to be more attacking?
Yeah, because I think you need to show that the next season that follows this is going to be different. And, even you look at kind of Pochettino at Chelsea, for example, they have pretty disastrous at times, but then it really started to click towards the end, and it was starting to build. And you kind of thought, if he stuck with Poch after that, if he hadn't had a disagreement with the board and the way that they ran things, maybe they would have run that into the next season. I remember, Brendan Rodgers, when he gets Daniel Sturridge and he gets Coutinho in the middle of a season, and it kind of comes together for them in attack. And then they took that into then challenge from the title the following season. So your second half of your season is almost a run up to what's going to happen to the next one a lot of the time. And so I think he has to show more. I think he has to show that, like, he can get these attacking patterns going with all the quality of the players that he's got, that he can get Wirtz and Ekitike consistently doing what they did the other night. And that can happen from game to game. It can happen in the Premier League. And so, it just has to look a bit slicker for me. And I think it has to look a bit slicker for Liverpool. And also, the chance creation has to come up, and not at the expense of defending as well. You have to show a balanced team, I think. Otherwise, I think Liverpool, Richard Hughes and that will get to the end of the season and kind of say, this has been a long time where this team has been not very balanced. And I just, and have a chat about why is that. I think a lot of it they will just look and say, the coach is not giving us a balanced team. He's got the teams he's got the tools to put together a more balanced side than what we're saying. That's the judgment they have to make. I feel like it should just be slightly better than it is, to be honest.
Yeah, it does feel such a key. Well, it is a key 6 months for Arne Slot for Liverpool. And for Arne Slot, I don't know if this is a defence or not, because it's right to say January, we've had all the reports, Conor Bradley's unfortunately out for the season, joining Leone and Isak in being long-term absentees. All the suggestions are there's going to be no one coming through the door. I mean, is that fair for then Slot to say, well, come on, I need a numbers with these injuries? Or is there an argument to say, well, you had 450 million in the summer, you've still got some brilliant players. Where were you standing on? Does January come into this judgment?
I think it will be mitigation if Canate and Gomez go down for a long period. Then I think you'll be able to say, look, because that's the reason we want to sign in, is the possibility, the probability of Joe Gomez getting an injury, and then the fact that increases the possibility of Ibrahim Canate playing too much and getting an injury of his own. So that's the worry around those two. But I think if he gets to the end of the season and Canate's been fit, Joe Gomez has been able to pick up games and be an option there, then I don't really think that will come into it as a, this is why we didn't look any good as a side between, the end of the season, because I just don't think that's a relevant excuse, really. I think, like I say, if even if you do get injuries at centre half, is this attack going to look a little bit better between now and the end of the season? I think that's something they'll 100% be tracking. And I'd say if they can avoid injuries, and Canate was fully fit for the majority of last season, bar being fallen on, can you get him through to the end of the season? If you can, then I don't think it will be a huge factor really, or it shouldn't be seen as something that's completely undermined the ability to make the team balanced.
Yeah, true. There is honesty in that, and I suppose for the future element, because this is sort of fast forwarding a little bit into 6 months in the summer, but even now, people are talking about, and there's a clamour from some element about an interim, something like that. But realistically, it's fair to say, unless things completely fall off a cliff again and we go 5-15 and Champions League comes under threat, any romantic natures of Steven Gerrard coming in the dugout with Johnny Heitinger as assistant coach or anything, they're just not on the table for FSG, are
they? I think with an interim, I think an interim's on the table if it gets really, really bad. I think it's they clearly didn't want to do it around the time it was 9 defeats in 12, and they made the call that a slot would be better than any interim. But I wouldn't rule that out at all. I think if it gets really, really bad again, and they think, well, we've just got to do something to stop this being as bad as it is. If he suffers 9 defeats in 12 over the next 12 games, they'll go for an interim. So, and who would be in the mix? Maybe it would be Stevie just to see them through. Maybe whoever else it would be. I'm not sure it would be particularly successful, but you can't lose that many games as Liverpool manager. You can't just keep losing and losing and losing as he was. You can't do that twice in a season, that's for sure. So I think they would prefer to avoid it completely, and maybe Slot will be able to get them through without that happening. I would certainly hope so. But they're not. I don't think they'd be completely against an interim. I think that was the route that they would have had to go down early in the season if maybe Slot had lost to West Ham.
Yeah. Be interested in a way, as bad as it is. You hope we don't have that one of results. This conversation doesn't come up, or everyone's on that scenario. For the future, though, with the news in the football world, I mean, I can make an argument. This is bad news for Arne Slot's future. That we know Xabi Alonso is now a free agent, having left Real Madrid. We know in the summer that the World Cup will pass, and people will throw out names like Nagelsmann. Once the World Cups in Germany could be free, Luis Enrique question marks. But even just the fact that always in the summer, the market's better for players and managers or head coaches at the same time. But especially this Xabi Alonso spectre, that's just looming over Arne Slot. And you do wonder how that's in the minds of the powers that be.
Yeah, it just causes him a problem in the sense that, the reason, like I say, that he doesn't get sacked in the middle of the season is because the option that's the alternative is not as good as him. Whereas when he gets to the summer, if the football is broadly similar, the underlying performance is broadly similar, Liverpool will look at that and say, well, this has been the case for a long time. Do we think this manager who we liked a lot, we've got really good connections with, we know his representatives, and we know he would quite like to come to Liverpool as well. He ended up at Real Madrid in the end, of course, in that situation because he wasn't ready to leave Bayer Leverkusen at the time that Liverpool needed a manager. And then the timing was perfect to go to Real Madrid. Probably a silly step on his behalf, not realizing how crazy it is over there. But, it wasn't the kind of doesn't want to come to Liverpool. And in fact, as he looks to kind of, he doesn't have to rebuild his reputation now because everybody knows what happened to him there. But I mean, when he's picking his next move, in terms of sensible clubs that will give you time and will give you the tools to do your job, Liverpool has got to be right up there. And of course, he has that personal affection for them as well. So it ticks an awful lot of boxes. So, and we know Liverpool liked him. So again, they're going to get to the summer and they'll have a call. We either renew Arne Slot's contract or we go down a different route. And Alonso's one of those potential routes. And of course, they did rate him very highly. I don't think it's accurate to say it was first choice, second choice. He never got that far with Alonso. He couldn't, because he wanted to stay. He wanted to do another year in Germany. And I think the right move for him was to do that and get a bit more experience. But, he was certainly high in the thinking and they liked him a lot. So, at one point he was someone that they hoped to have the chance to be able to appoint. So, or be able to at least talk to a bit more. So, it's not maybe helpful to Arne, and it increases the kind of speed with which he needs to turn things around and show a little bit more, I think, between now and the end of the season.
And I suppose a final one for this, because we spelt out in terms of style of play, the man management elements. will it come down to obviously the people that make decisions like Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes? You've obviously got to get in the Champions League. You've got to improve the style of play. But if we don't see those, that's probably not necessarily going to be enough to save you.
Yeah, my view is, and this is just my personal view, but I think if the underlying numbers stay the same and Liverpool do get in the top four, I'm not massively convinced that will be enough to keep them in the job, because I just think they are so wedded to, well, what's the likelihood that this level of performance gets us to win the biggest trophies? And it's basically zero. So I think it's a massive factor. And again, it's one of the reasons I'm kind of quite down on Liverpool at the moment. I think people think you're being harsh because they'll win games and you're still like, oh, like the cup game. I didn't feel great about the performance because I looked at some of the aspects of it and it was just like, does this give us a repeatable route to these sorts of wins in scoreline terms? And the fact is no. So, that's all part of the consideration for them, really, is that, and that's why I think kind of top four alone might not just be enough, because even though it's massive for Liverpool to get there, I still just think they'll look at the wider picture and what is available as an alternative and what we could maybe do, and just think, you know what, thanks very much, but it was a long period of time there where the underlying performance wasn't quite right. And so we were making the call to go in a different direction. That just wouldn't surprise me at all. But of course, it wouldn't hurt Arne either in terms of his chances to get there and to be there in the top four come May. So definitely an aim for him. But I do think he needs a little bit more out of the football. And that's not just the aesthetics, like I say. I just think he needs a few more games where it's 2 expected goals for Liverpool, half an expected goal for the opposition. More games where Liverpool look really balanced and competent. And that doesn't have to be every game, because they're a top four side. You can lose a few games. You're not going to be getting points at kind of the rate that a team that wins the league does. That's absolutely fine. But you'd almost like them to kind of be a little bit more kind of swinging from really, really competent to occasionally not great than this, which is just this kind of very level, 5th, 6th place finish kind of football that they're playing at the moment, where it is those coin flip games, really. So, I top four will help, but I don't think it'll just be enough on its own.
I suppose a final one that's a fair question, and if you have alluded to this at times in a chat, because of the style we're playing, and I didn't mind this comment actually, you feel more confident sometimes in the San Siro away or Arsenal away with the style of performance than getting a result there. Does a Champions League win make a renewal straight automatic?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. Christ, I mean, yeah, Jesus. How many, the amount of Liverpool managers that won a European Cup ever. And I mean, what that would mean, and surely Liverpool, they can't just. I don't think they'll, kind of look their way to winning that. You have to show real quality at times. So you have to assume if Liverpool go and win the Champions League that the performance level has gone up massively, and they are having games where the underlying stuff looks really good. I can't imagine a world where they just purely spawn their way there. And even if they do spawn their way there, the argument's not like, oh, this is like a Di Matteo situation, because this manager won the league. So if he backs it up by winning the Champions League, I dare say it'll suggest that he's absolutely magic. So there's no question whatsoever he gets a new deal if he does that. But I just don't think the football they are playing, it could, it can get them decent points or the odd win in the big away games. But I just think when they come up against, if they face PSG again, if they face Manchester City, I just think what they could do to them in terms of the quality of their play versus Liverpool's at the moment. I don't think Liverpool will be near that, to be honest.
Doesn't feel that way at all, but we shall see what unfolds. We'll see what unfolds in January. It's expected to be a quiet window. We'll see about the style of play. We'll see if any other blow-ups happen. It's so much to work out between now and the end of the season, and that spectre of Xabi Alonso is just going to loom large all the way through. All it leaves me to say, as ever, is for the time, insight, and for answering all the questions, David, it is massively appreciated.
Thank you. And I thought we got some great comments there as well. I thought it was like a really good kind of people recognizing that it's a debate to be had. It doesn't have to be like nasty or, it was it was nice to read some of the input there.
Indeed, absolutely. And ladies and gents, on the 14th of January, that was an AI special for Anfield Index.